dwarf planet Haumea is a great symbol for New Earth because in the mythology, she's linked to the Hawaiian goddess of fertility, and she was able to birth babies from all over her body, not just the normal place, and kind of change herself from an old crone to a young maiden. And in her fire goddess aspect, she's said to have birthed the 8 islands of Hawaii, which was one of the clues to me that we are going to see some landmass changes with,
Wow,
extreme
amazing.
seismic activity. So, but she also has the promise not only of new land masses or very old land masses re-emerging that are going to be pristine, unpolluted, all kinds of new plant life. And quite a few months ago, probably about 8 months ago, this gigantic mountain range was discovered off the coast of Chile that nobody had known about, with all kinds of new plant species and sea species in it. So I think with these changes, the extreme weather, seismic activity, all that kind of thing, that new Earth is new land masses are either going to be emerging from the seas and the oceans, and or are going to be revealed via some kind of, ice melting or whatever, to reveal really beautiful, pristine land. And that is literally going to be new.
Incredible.
Literally.
It's quite literal as well as what the consciousness shift. It's kind of quite physical as well.
Absolutely, that literally new Earth. So we're going to be really understanding new plant species. I think we'll eat less, we'll eat more plant-based, we'll be eating high frequency foods. And this is all part of the physical transition, as you say, but it's also linked to a consciousness transition. And so, and we can look at other dwarf planets. I mean, Salacia is a big one as well, because in myth, she is the wife of Neptune. She's mermaid energy. She's linked to the shimmering sunlight, moonlight on the sea. I think she's very linked to photonic energy, that's kind of high frequency light. And we're getting, because we're at the peak of solar cycle 25, we're getting a lot of solar flares, which I think everybody's aware of. But it isn't just the sun throwing out these balls of radiation. They are actually new light codes.
Yes.
They're new light codes. And when I was having my week's rest, which was so welcome, in a place where you could actually see the sun for a week, which was remarkable for an English person, watching the sunsets. Do you know, if I was living in places like that where you could see the sunset every day, it'd be like a pilgrimage for me, because it wasn't just the sun going down, the colors were like I've never seen before, deep purples and magentas and lime greens, and they were shooting off in plumes all around the sun as it sank very rapidly. And I was just kind of hypnotized, thinking, my God, this isn't a normal sunset. And maybe my perception of the sun, or maybe it was literally that's what the sun was throwing out, but it was a series of incredibly powerful light codes that I felt all of us watching that. I mean, there were hundreds of us on this kind of precipice, were absorbing as ingredients for evolution. And so Salacia, I feel, is also linked to a bigger understanding that's going to come in around light. Water is condensed light. I think she's very linked to light language. She was very prominent at, gosh, I think it was the solar eclipse last October. I was in Glastonbury with Veda Austin, and it was one of the eclipses, and Salacia was exact on that eclipse. And
no coincidences that you were with Veda at that time.
and she's saying water is condensed light.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so things like this, that when we either have Salacia prominent in our birth charts or we're receiving a transit from Salacia, this is just my theory, which I haven't tested out yet, but is that when people are going to start to spontaneously speak light language, because they're connecting to a higher level of consciousness. And that, I'm just throwing that out as a theory at the moment. But I think undeniably these dwarf planets are going to lead us to a higher level of consciousness, which is partly new and partly ancient.
That's fascinating, Pam. I love that you brought up the water and the consciousness of water, because I interviewed Veda a few months back, and in a way it's a similar conversation. what is the water?
Mm.
What it means to be human again, but looking at it through those filters rather than the astrological. So I'm not so surprised at all that you guys are connected.
And it's wonderful, because I think Veda strongly feels this, and I feel this too, that water is actually the evolutionary impulse for everything. My understanding of how the earth was created was via the water.
Mm.
And when I was talking to Richard Rudd about that metamorphosis of the water nymph to the dragonfly, the way he describes it, this is true biologically, that one day the water nymph just decides it's not going to be an underwater water nymph anymore and climbs up a stalk of grass and kind of dries its wings in the sun. But the thing that makes it turn into a dragonfly is the water nymph pumps it pumps its old body, which is full of water, into the wings of the dragonfly to enable the dragonfly's wings to spread out and to fly.